Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all safe and well and everyone is enjoying some indoor gardening at the moment. I recently picked up a few plants, so I just wanted to show you and give you a few care tips. The first plant I picked up from my local garden centre, the Garden Society, was this Policia Cyanea. I find it a bit of a mouthful, also known as the Chinese money plant. And I picked up this particular one because it had lots of little pups growing at the base. So these plants can thrive in bright, indirect light, and they can also take a little bit of filtered sunlight. So they would prefer to be on a south, east or west facing window. This is a east facing window. I had one of these before and I had it on my west facing window and it didn't do too well and it ended up kind of dying back. I'm not quite sure why. I think perhaps it was getting too much sun in the afternoon. So this window receives a little bit of filtered sun throughout the day, but it's usually kind of in the morning up until the afternoon, so they're not getting that much sun. So to keep this plant looking its best, you're meant to rotate them every few days to make sure that they grow straight, because they do tend to grow towards the light. So once it gets a bit taller, if I'm rotating it every few days, it should grow quite evenly. I have to remember to do that. Make sure you go easy on the watering with these guys. They need a really well draining soil. And when I repot this plant, I will use my usual mix of Coir compost, perlite, orchid bark, bit of charcoal, and I'll also add in some cacti mix as well and make sure it's a really nice chunky well draining mix. There is a plastic nursery pot inside this ceramic pot, so when I water it I'll take it out, give it a good soak, let it all drain out the bottom and then place it back in the ceramic pot. This plant needs to dry out in between waterings, so I won't be watering it until the soil is completely dry. So depending on the season, the temperature and environment in your house will depend on how much you have to water it. At the moment, I'm watering all my plants roughly around once a week, apart from a couple of them like my croton, which actually needs a water. I water that twice a week because it's quite thirsty. And a couple of my calatheas and Valentine, of course. This plant is non-toxic, so it's a great plant to have if you've got pets. I actually bought two of these and one of them is in the living room where my birds are. So I'll show you that one in a minute. It's much smaller than this one, but I'm hoping this one will really enjoy being on this windowsill. All the plants seem to really thrive on this windowsill, so fingers crossed. Also, something else to mention about watering, I do recommend using filtered rainwater, distilled water rather than tap water, just because it does contain some chemicals and a lot of houseplants are sensitive to those chemicals. So I personally use a filter jug, which I bought a couple of years ago, and I use it for my houseplants, for myself and for my pet birds. And I've never had an issue with browning on the plants or anything like that, because some of them can be a bit sensitive. If you've only got a really bright south-facing window for this particular plant, I'd recommend just moving it a few feet away from the window if you can. And if you haven't got bright enough light for it, I would recommend getting a grow light. So the next plant I wanted to show you that I picked up is this gorgeous Aglaonema Lady Valentine, or Valentine. I actually wasn't sure of the exact variety, so I did put a picture out on Instagram and asked you guys what variety you thought it was, and most of the comments said Valentine, Lady Valentine or Red Valentine, so I'm going with that. It is a little bit tatty looking, but it was the last one there and I just had to have it. I'm sure it will be fine. I'll bring it back to life. This plant is also known as Chinese evergreen, and there are tons of different varieties. They're very easy to grow, very low maintenance plants, and they're very, very beautiful. Grown for the foliage, although they can flower. I mean, look at that. That is just stunning. I think that is one of the newer leaves there, and I've got a little one back there. I'll probably end up cutting off this one at some point because it's dying back. I will be doing a pruning video for you guys soon. So I'll be going around pruning and taking care of my plants, and I'll take you with me. So I'm saving some of the old dying leaves for that video. These plants can be grown in low to bright light, but will thrive in bright indirect light. And you'll find that they'll grow a bit faster in brighter light and the variegation will be better. And that's what I found with my other aglaonemas anyway, but they can actually be grown in lower light, which is great if you do want a beautiful houseplant that doesn't require really bright light. Regarding the watering, I usually water my aglaonemas around once a week, and the amount of water you give it and how often, again, will depend on the season and your home environment. My house stays quite warm even throughout the winter. It stays at around 23 degrees Celsius, which is why I still get a lot of plants producing growth through the winter. These plants aren't fussy with humidity, which is great, but they are highly toxic, so please keep them away from your kids and your pets. With all my plants, I start fertilising them usually in the springtime and throughout the summer once a month. And I use liquid fertiliser called Baby Bio. I'll link all the products I use in the description box as usual, and I have now got an Amazon shop, so I've added everything that I use and recommend into my Amazon shop, which is also linked in the description box. Another great thing about aglaonemas is they stay quite compact, so if you don't have too much room for plants, this is a great plant to have because it doesn't take up much room and it won't grow too big. So you can collect lots of different varieties. The last plant I picked up is the Policia Cyanea, formerly known as the Policia Cyanea, and also known as the pink quill plant. This is actually a bromeliad, but it's also an air plant. It's kind of a mix. So you can actually grow it in soil, or you can take it out of the soil and grow it like an air plant. So as you can see, this plant produces a beautiful pink bract, and then from the bract you'll get these amazing purple flowers, and it flowers for quite some time. I did actually have a couple of these, but sadly they didn't make it whilst I was away on holiday. I did pick up 2 of these, so the other one is downstairs in the bamboo holder on the wall. So once this plant is finished flowering, it actually dies back, and then the mother plant will start producing pups around the base, and then once those are big enough you can actually separate them from the mother plant and then grow some more plants. These do prefer a little bit of humidity, but they're not too fussy. And in regards to fertilising, you can actually use a foliar spray on them as you would any air plant. You can actually get some proper bromeliad or tillandsia sprays, but just remember, unlike air plants, it does actually have quite a good root system, so it will also need fertilising at the roots. The pink quill plant prefers bright indirect light. It can take a little bit of sun, but I wouldn't recommend getting direct sun on it for too long. From personal experience, I find these quite easy to grow and they're not too fussy, and you will enjoy the flowers for quite a few months. It's really nice to have a splash of pink amongst all the green. As you can see there, lots of green. So I really love this plant. It's so vibrant and really stands out amongst all your other plants. Here are the other plants in my living room, and these sit around maybe like 3 feet or so away from a west-facing window, so they do get quite good light, especially in the afternoon. They get a little bit of sun in the afternoon. Obviously I'll be monitoring them, see how they go. I might repot this one actually to a slightly bigger pot, although I have heard that they don't mind being a bit pot bound. And for now I'm just going to keep the pink quill plants in the pots with the soil. Last time I actually grew them as air plants, but you have to remember to keep misting them or kind of soaking them in water every now and again, otherwise they'll just dry out. Thanks for watching everyone. I really hope you enjoyed my mini plant haul and care tips. If you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you all soon in my next video. Take care everyone. Bye.